a bit delayed for me, I think, but we'll see. All right, I think we're probably live now. On mine, it says waiting for broadcast. We'll wait just a second. Jonathan, if you see us online, please let us know. There we go. I think we're live. So welcome everyone to this Thursday roundtable. I have three very special guests with me today. I am filling in for Rollis as he's finally taking a much needed vacation. Today we're going to be talking about the best leadership skills to have during uncertainty. And I have three amazing experts in this field, and I will let them go ahead and introduce themselves. Donna, do you want to get us started?
Sure. Hi, my name is Donna Forgy. I am living in St. Louis, and I've been self-employed for about 19 years now, and I do a lot of training in leadership. I do a lot of professional development, so that might also include sales training and public speaking, but predominantly what I do is really focusing on leaders. On the side, I teach for an organization some of you may have heard of. It's called Dale Carnegie. They've been around for, golly, over 100 years, and they're worldwide. And, we do the same sorts of types of training too. So that's me.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. Diana, would you like to go next?
Sure. I have been in HR for over 20 years. Currently, I work for a government contractor that is out of Virginia and San Antonio. And then right before then, worked in healthcare for Legacy Community Health. So I've been in charge of HR for both of those organizations, and glad to be here.
Thank you so much for taking the time today. And Anthony, would you like to please introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Anthony Ashby. I'm actually Vice President of Operations at CHI Health for two of our facilities here in Omaha, Nebraska. My role pretty much entails operations of everything that's non-nursing related, as well as a lot of community relations and diversity and inclusion stuff. So thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you. And you've been, I think, both Diana and Anthony have been past guests, and this is Donna's first time as a guest on one of our shows. So if you guys have any questions for any of the experts we brought in today, please let us know. You can just drop a comment in the comment section. Also, let us know where you're logging in from. That's always helpful. We have two people in Texas, one in Nebraska, and one in St. Louis, Missouri.
That's it.
Is that where that's at? Okay. Yeah, it's a Thursday, remember? Right. And we already have a couple people logged in. Thank you so much, Mateo and Sierra and Joanne. Thank you guys so much. If you have any questions, like I said, let us know. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. I wanted to kind of set the stage with each of you telling me and the audience about your personal leadership style. What are the key components of your personal leadership style? And Donna, do you want to go first this time, or do you want to see how we work this through?
I mean, I'm good to go first. If
you're like, I teach this.
Yeah, that's not how we do it here. So.
Oh no, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah, please go ahead. We'd love to hear.
So personal leadership style is, I would definitely say it's very relationship building. We talk about in leadership, we lead with people, not to people. And I think that the most important aspect of being a strong leader is really getting to know your employees. And really the only way you can do that is to spend time with them. I wish leadership was cookie cutter. I wish we could say we treat everybody the same, but it just doesn't work like that. And, I think, if we look at it, like a lot of us probably have children, I have two, and I have to treat them completely different. That's the same thing with our employees. If you want to be successful with people, there's that great rule that's called the platinum rule. Some of you probably heard of it. And the platinum rule basically says treat people the way they want to be treated. So in order to do that, you got to really get to know them well. And I also think that the other piece of leadership that I think is tough for most people, at least this is what I've, learned about, people after teaching for so many years, is being able to give that tough feedback. And sometimes they want to avoid it because they don't want to have that tough conversation. But, I think we have to look at it a little bit differently. Is that we have to look at being honest is kind, not being honest is not kind. And I think if we reframe it to saying that it's part of the job, it's what we do, but instead of thinking, oh, I don't want to say it because it's going to hurt their feelings, honesty is going to create credibility, trust, respect, all the above. I mean, clearly there's a way to say it. You know, I mean, sometimes the way we want to say it isn't the way. I think those are my two, what I would say most important things is build that relationship, spend time with your employees, and for sure, be honest with them. You know, we look at the top 10 things of what employees want from their leader. And this isn't my opinion, this is research. And it says the number one thing that people want from their leaders is honesty. So, you know.
That makes sense. Yep. And especially during times when you don't know what's going on, be honest. And if you don't know, if you don't have an answer, be honest about that too. I think everybody knows there's something wrong when you don't hear from a leader, you can't get an answer, you know, you're like, there's something going on.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people default to that, but I like I very much appreciate your style of networking and being honest. So Anthony, do you want to share your personal leadership style next?
Yeah, I mean, I think Donna stole my thunder there pretty much, but I would say almost pretty much the exact same thing. I mean, it's really, really relational. It's about being honest. And I think over the past year or so, I don't think any of that's really changed. It's just kind of just reinforced that that importance of building those relationships. I always tell people there's just kind of a natural disconnect between people that manage the work and people that actually do the work. Mm-hmm. So it's very important to recognize that and spend time with the team, learn from them, always be learning. You know, don't assume that people know things. And I would agree, honestly, I think I really pride myself on being approachable and visible and genuine, because I think a lot of times, you know, when you hear these really kind of boilerplate political answers, I mean, you're not fooling everybody, and you seem ingenuine, and people don't trust you. And I'm honestly skeptical when somebody always has an answer for something. If you always have the answer, then I'm skeptical of that. So it's fine to say you don't know, but building those relationships to make sure people are confident that you're going to figure it out, or work with them to figure it out, or have the resources to help them navigate that is way more important than actually knowing everything, but being able to help figure it out. So yeah, honesty in relationships is really everything.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing that. And then Diana, what is your personal leadership style?
I think it's certainly similar to Donna and Anthony, but a couple more things I would add is I liked how Anthony said be visible. I think that working alongside your team is definitely builds that, you know, starts that relationship like Donna mentioned, and then also builds the trust, which both of you all had said that as well. I think also just trying to be as transparent, you know, we trust and transparency, and also to let's say, I guess, block cover for them. I know in certain organizations, the way that it's structured, that might be an important factor to be able to, if you're at a table with the leadership team, being able to bring back information that actually is manageable. And perhaps if it is the sky is falling at the management team table, to just say, we're having a little turbulence at the employee table, right? To make sure that they stay engaged and to be able to keep them motivated. You know, so trust, transparency, and motivation are key things to my style.
Yeah, I think that those all three of those styles are, you know, very similar, and they probably all have the same type of components, but each of you work in a different field, and, you know, so you're obviously doing different things that work best for your organizations. But I think they all are extremely valuable. So thank you so much for explaining those. So as we move on, okay, we all know we don't have to say unprecedented times. I swear, if I hear that one more time, it's like, when are we getting back to precedented? What does that even mean?
You got to pivot.
Yes. So is there anything significant that has changed in your leadership style or in your leadership approach in the past year and a half? And we can go the same way around, or we can start with Anthony. Well,
yeah, I'm fine with starting. I mean, honestly, okay. I can't honestly say that anything's changed, but I think the perspective of kind of what we talked about is just, it's way more important to do all those things. And I think it's brought to light where you realize maybe you weren't doing some of the things you think you do as often as you did. So being more visible, being more transparent, being more vulnerable, we don't know, but we're going to figure it out, and building those relationships. One of the things we did here to try to amplify that a little bit is recently, the past few Tuesdays and next following Tuesdays through the summer, myself and our HR business partner are actually working shifts with some of our staff. So we worked in food nutrition services. We did a whole shift with volunteer services. We just did a team. Next week, we're going to do clinical engineering, and we're going to clean rooms and things like that. So that's showing to be very fruitful for everybody. I'm learning a lot. Our team's super excited to share the work that they do, and understand that we're curious and respect what they do. And it's been amazing. So just really amplifying more of that style, I think, has just become more and more important, I think, for me.
That's a really unique approach. Like, you are hands-on working shifts with employees to learn more about their positions and their day-to-day, what they do. And I think that a lot of times in leadership, you're so far removed from what people do on a day-to-day basis. Like, you know what maybe their position title is, but you may not actually understand what their role fully is. And so I can see how that would be incredibly valuable for you as a leader, but also for your employees to see you as a leader that's willing to do the hard work, like, cleaning hospital rooms or providing food service. Those are jobs that often get overlooked, but they're absolutely, essential to the functioning of your facility. So I really like that.
There's a lot more to it than I think people realize. And I think one of the things that we've noticed is that a lot of people that do these jobs really kind of downplay the work that they do. And it's like, I just do this, I just do that. It's like, if you really work the shift, I mean, there's a lot of safety components involved with delivering food, and there's a lot of financial and safety components involved with making sure supplies getting certain places timely, and notification and communication and inventory and things like that. So really making sure that they see, like, this is huge. Like, I mean, you do it and you're really good at it, but a lot of it's not easy. It is very important. And it's essential for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate that. So, Diana, do you want to go next? And it's what has changed in your approach or style of leadership over the past 18 months?
I think for me, in the working from home, working remote, going back and forth, which has been the most recent situation, doing both in office and out of office.
Right.
For me, it's been, I have to really be intentional, sometimes even put a reminder on my calendar to check in with my staff. And I'm not talking about the one-on-one meeting that you might have set every week, although that's equally important, but just the unexpected, text or phone call, like, hey, just checking in. You said you were dealing with some personal issues yesterday. Just wanted to make sure today is a good day. Or if I know it's not working out well, I know that an employee is still struggling with something, just to simply send them a text to say, hey, hang in there. Tomorrow's a new day. And I can't say that I really did that as much before. So it's for two reasons. One, I think working from home and not being able to have that conversation in the hallway. And then also due to all, how the world has changed, needing, recognizing that really checking in with someone personally is equally as important as making sure the work is getting done. Because that goes back to what we said in the first question, which is that relationship building. And I must say, when you're someone like I am that tries to stay focused and just get down to business, be really direct, I will catch myself like, okay, back to the report. Wait, how was your weekend?
Yeah.
Right.
You have to remember to be a human. And it's very strange that, us all being apart for so long, or, in different work circumstances is what it took to remind us that, like, we're humans, we work in a human space and a human industry. And, it's not just always business. There's a lot that goes on in people's daily lives.
And I think part of dealing with critical instances, either in healthcare or frankly, any industry at all, government contracting as well, that also is a layer that keeps us from being more personable, because everything's so quick and we need to get it done yesterday. It's when we're, it's balancing speed with caring. Right. And really trying to manage that real burnout that's happening across the board. It doesn't matter what industry. People are tired. And especially in healthcare, which both Anthony and I work in,
it's unbelievable. And it's you have to check in on the human being.
Yeah.
At times. Yeah. So that's an interesting change. And it's interesting to me that you recognize that so easily. Like, oh my gosh, I can't just be about business. I have to talk to people. So thank you. And then Donna, what about you? Have you changed anything in your approach or your teaching in leadership style in the past 18 months?
Yeah, some of it is the same, but we ask for more. So for example, in before all of this, one of the most important things that I put in my leadership program is the importance of manager once a week, individually. And this meeting, the only thing that happens in this meeting is you're going to ask them 2 questions. First question is, what do you got going this week? Or what are your priorities? Or what are your goals? However you want to say it. And then the second question is, how can I help you? So every single week, that meeting is to occur. And if that's all you have time to do, then do that. And how long should it take? Maybe 10 minutes. It's not a meeting for delegation. It's not a meeting for feedback. It's not a meeting for, reprimanding. It is only purpose of that meeting is for those 2 questions every single week. Mm-hmm. And quite honestly, people that do that, they love it. And it does so much for the employee, makes them feel important, special. And it also gives the manager, gets their arms around, what are my employees doing every single week? Maybe I'm giving too much to one person and not enough to somebody else. Gallup poll says now that about 45% of employees feel like their managers don't care about them. Okay. That's a pretty good number, 45%. That's huge. Yeah. And I think a lot of that has come because of the environment that we're living in now. Is think about, where is trust built? It's built in the hallway when you're walking down the hallway. It's built before the meeting. It's built after the meeting. It's built when I stop by Anthony's office and I'm like, hey, you got a minute? That's where it's built. And so as a challenge that we face now in the environment, whether it's hybrid or whether it's, going back, is that it is so hard to make that connection with people. And so all of what, I really talk about now is upping the amount of time you spend with people. It is, as Diana said, it's almost a reminder you got to put on your computer screen that says, hey, check in. And when you start doing that, it seems to be that, again, people feel like, wow, you're taking time out for me. It's so important to do that. So how have I changed? I haven't changed a lot of the philosophies around leadership, but I talk about the challenge of how we can, or, before a meeting, if you and I want to talk, Leah, you and I will go over and sit over there and talk. But now if I want to talk to you, then Diana and Anthony are listening too, so you don't get to have that connection kind of thing. Right. And so we, just talking about, and if you're a brand new employee and this is how you've met your team, oh my gosh, if I've met my boss through Zoom and I've never met him in person, I mean, it's almost, and how do you collaborate? How do you get creative and brainstorm and all of those sorts of things? So I think my take on this is talking about clearly the same thing about spending time with people, but also recognizing how our employees are feeling right now. I mean, it's funny, yesterday I was telling, before the call, we were talking about how I did some training with a client in Jamaica. Mm-hmm. We were talking about all the changes that we've gone through. And it's an interesting thing that you can talk to anybody in the world and they're feeling the same way, right? Yep. So I had them, on a whiteboard, write down what are the changes that their organization's gone through in the last 18 months. And then on the next slide, I said, now write down how you think your employees have felt in the last 18 months. Now, I taught this class 6 different groups. Not one time did anybody put a positive word. It's not like everybody was like, oh, yay, COVID, we get to work from home now, right? So yeah. It was worry, it was stress, it was fear, anxious, depressed. I mean, it was so recognizing what our employees, and including ourselves, what we go through, we really need to learn to manage that. Diana used a term that made me think of something when she said, at the leadership table when there's like, what was that term used? Not like a crisis, but it like blew up or.
Oh yeah. Sky is falling and it really
Sky
just
is
kept
falling.
turning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and everybody has to do what you continue to do and do it the same or faster.
Yeah. Yeah. But what made me think when she brought that up is I sort of relate leadership a little bit to this analogy. It might not work for you, but it works for me. So you're on a plane and you hit some really bad turbulence. And the flight attendant's standing there pouring the drinks in the good old days when they used to pour you drinks. So you're sitting there and you get this really bad turbulence. And I look at the flight attendant and she was just like, I'm like, oh, she was like, oh, that was a fun.
She's fine.
And I'm like, I'm cool. I'm cool. Yeah. But if I look at her face and she's like, then I'm thinking, we're going down. We're dead. We're dead. Right. People look at us. We're always being watched. And so during challenging times, we got to be mindful of what this is saying, because this will completely impact your team too.
Absolutely. No, and thank you so much for sharing, about your experiences in consulting with different organizations and what they've done and what they've changed. It was really interesting that you asked them how their employees felt, because I think a lot of organizations make decisions, very unilaterally, which they have every right to do, but they don't often check in with their employees. They don't check in on, hey, is this a good change? Is this a positive change? How are you feeling about this change? And like you said, nobody had anything positive to say, which is, it speaks pretty widely to maybe we didn't include everyone or some of the stakeholders that we should have in this conversation.
Well, and I think a lot of it is this change was forced on us. Nobody got an option. Whereas now when we talk about other changes that you go through in an organization, I think it's key. If you're going to get some buy-in, you really got to get them to participate in some, ideas and brainstorming about how might we go about doing this.
Yeah. So for everybody that's watching from home or their office or their car or wherever you're logged in from, let us know about some of the changes that your organization has made in the past year and how you feel like your leaders, or if you are a leader, how you've handled them. And while you guys do that, I'm going to ask our panel today a couple of fun questions. So what was the first job that you ever had? The very first job that you got like an actual paycheck for, I guess. Anthony, you smiled. What was yours?
When I think about my first job, I think about my brother, actually. It's funny, but we both ended up working around the same time in high school. I worked for a grocery store called Giant. And I was pretty much like pushing carts and putting carts away and things like that, bagging. But what I remember specifically is that my brother, because he was so young, he could only work like literally 2 hours a week. So he used to come in 1 day a week and bag for 2 hours. He would get a check that was so small, they wouldn't, like the taxes didn't even come out of it. And he would take that check every time and just go buy a CD. It was enough to buy a CD and that's it. So every week,
one CD,
he'd get a check, he'd buy a CD every week.
Yeah. Yep. That is hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, what he wanted.
Yeah.
Diana, what about you? What was your very first job?
Selling shoes for kids at Stride Right. I don't know if anyone remembers that store, but
that was your first job. You were selling shoes.
I was to little kids and I fit their little teeny tiny feet and I loved it. And of course, the kids would come in with really stinky feet and that wasn't so good.
Oh. That's terrible. And what about you, Donna?
I was a waitress and, for food, which I absolutely hated the whole job, not only from picking up dirty plates, but the ridiculous outfit that we had to wear.
Oh, no.
It was
do we even want to know or not?
Well, it was all poofy and, big, gigantic skirt. And the worst was this hat that we had to wear. And honest to God, it was just, every time I'd walk out of the house and I'd see myself in the mirror, I'm like, why am I doing this?
That's so funny.
Yeah.
So anybody in the comments that wants to share what their first job was, I think it's always good to humble us all to remember where we started. Yeah. Last week I asked this question and he's a doctor now in Georgia and he's like, I am like the true American. My first job was at McDonald's. And he was just so proud of himself. Oh, it was so great.
Yeah.
It was pretty interesting. So if you want to share what your first job was, please go ahead and let us know. So Melissa Cortez says, and she's a BSN RN, she says, I think when dealing with healthcare workers, being more transparent will go a long way. When we can't see you be vulnerable, it almost seems like you don't care or you don't understand. I know from being a leader that you definitely do, but what would be your advice on how to remain stoic? Oh, that's interesting. Oh, how to remain stoic but connected. Sorry, I had to scroll up. That's interesting. So you want to remain calm but be truthful. So you don't want to. I see that too. I when you look to a leader who's flustered or can't figure it out, or it's an emergency 911 all the time, it's too much. But you also need a leader that truly understands when there's urgency. So does anybody have an answer for her on how to remain stoic but connected?
I would say one of the things that comes to mind is making sure you have a strong network internally, whether that's people you work with, other people in your industry, a mentor or mentee or something like that, where you can have those kind of conversations that are not kind of front facing and be able to discuss those things that you might be worried and scared about. So when you have an outlet like that, to be able to kind of share some of those emotions that you might not want to be so forward with some of the staff, sometimes it's good to have those kind of outlets. I would say, I think another thing is just a good working network to be able to delegate, because there's a lot of things that people will ask you based on your role and you won't know and you're not involved in. So the more people you know in your organization that you could kind of bounce ideas off of. And I think that just the more you actually get out there, it's kind of counterintuitive. If you feel like you don't know much and you don't want to go in front of people and you're kind of scared that you're just going to be grilled with questions you can't answer, I think the more you do that, just that gesture of being out there, I think puts people at ease in itself. And when you kind of hide and you're not as visible, that's when some of that anxiety starts to creep up and people are wondering what you're doing and worried and scared and things like that. So just the fact of you being out there is actually probably more helpful than I think people realize.
That visibility piece. I would agree. Donna, as a leadership trainer and coach and expert, what would you say to somebody that, you're dealing with extremely difficult situation and how to remain stoic, not show too much emotion, but be connected? Or is that the right thing to do at all?
Well, first of all, I love the word that she used, which was vulnerability.
Okay.
Huge, important leadership skill. And think about what vulnerability is. It's really being authentic. It's being who you are. It's not having some, barrier up or some kind of, something that covers who you are. But it's also being, as I said earlier, it's being honest and having those tough conversations and not being afraid to do that. There's a wonderful book out there. It's called, I need to get the author because the title's crazy. It's called Getting Naked. Now, don't just go Google search
that. Don't Google search that.
Because I don't know what you'll pull up. But Patrick, Lena Sononi, or
I'll get it. I know what you're talking about.
Okay, I have it right there and I'll get it in a minute. But the line of the book says, in order to build a relationship with anyone personally or professionally, you must be willing to be vulnerable. So sometimes when our emotions, like they're pushing an employee's pushing your button, and you feel that heat rising, or you feel that vein popping out of your forehead, or whatever it is that you do, and you feel there's too much emotion, that is the absolute worst time to have that conversation.
I found it. It's Getting Naked, a business fable about shedding the 3 fears that sabotage client loyalty.
Yeah, it is a wonderful.
Patrick Lencioni.
Yeah, I know him.
Yeah. And quite honestly, any book that he has is wonderful. They're skinny books. I don't like fat books or skinny books. And then I wanted to make another comment too, and it's a YouTube that I use a lot of time in training, and it's called "It's Your Ship on Employee Engagement."
It's your ship.
or sinking your ship, maybe. Look for sinking your ship. Sinking your ship.
Sinking your ship, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Engagement. And there's 2 versions of it. They're both great. The one's just been, updated, but it says in there that the number 1 driver that a manager needs to have if they want their employees to be engaged is empathy. The number 1 driver, if you want your employees to be engaged, you got to have empathy. And empathy is not, again, empathy is saying, I connect with you on a feeling. It's not saying I've walked your walk. It's saying I connect with your feeling. My very best girlfriend lost her son. I hope I never have to go through that horrible thing. But I can empathize with her because have I felt sad? Have I felt, fear? Have I felt, depressed? Have I had So I can empathize with her, not the situation, but I can empathize with it.
I'm sorry. One thing that makes so much sense is, empathy is so important across any organization and leadership. And this is something interesting, but I've always looked to children. I think children are some of the most empathetic humans. Understands that person's hurt and they feel that deeply for that person, or embarrassment, or, they have that same reaction. And somehow we grow out of that. Somehow we become stoic and pretend like things aren't hurting us or affecting us. But there is such a power in being vulnerable in a professional way and showing people that you're not, you don't have, like Anthony said, you don't have all the answers, and that's okay. Showing people that you're in the same situation. And it's such a powerful, useful tool and way to, lead your employees. And we have a couple of really good comments coming in, but you guys can continue on. I'm going to read the comments real quick. If you guys, Nancy Dean, is that somebody Diana?
No relation.
Okay, this is a different Nancy Dean. This is the most hilarious first job I have ever heard of. This beats McDonald's hands down. I taught baton twirling. At age 13, it was my original self-employed position.
Wow.
Okay.
That's great.
Like a little entrepreneur out there baton twirling for the neighborhood. I love that. Brian Block just signed in and he says, whoop, Diana.
I know Brian.
And then Joanne actually went ahead. She's incredible. The book that you referenced and the YouTube that you referenced, she has those links right there in the comments for everyone.
Okay. Let me throw one more out there too.
Okay.
And I know Diane probably knows this woman, Brene Brown.
Yes.
One of my favorites.
Okay.
So good.
And she's funny as ever. She's got a wonderful, wonderful TED Talk out there on vulnerability. And it's hilarious. But she sounds like she would be the most depressing person, but she's funny as ever. She studies shame and vulnerability. And she's got a wonderful book called Dare to Lead.
I think any leader should read that book.
Absolutely.
It's phenomenal.
Absolutely.
And if people don't like to read, then listen to her podcasts. She's got wonderful podcasts and all of those sorts of things. So,
okay. Well, okay. So I have another interesting question, and we can get the audience in on this one too, and then we'll get back to leadership things. And when you see Anthony doing this, it's because his hospital is super advanced, and they have lights that turn on and off when people.
We are green.
Yeah, they're green, and so he's
5 minutes.
I keep on seeing people. I know. It's great. I love it. Okay, so I have 2 questions. Well, let's start with the first one. So remember when you used to go to events or potlucks where you had to bring a dish? Do you remember those in the before times? Or little house gatherings or whatever. What is your go-to dish to bring to a party or potluck, like a dinner party or potluck? What do you always take? Go to? Diana, do you have one?
Yeah, an artichoke dip. That's my
simple, classic.
Artichoke dip and/or sangria.
Oh, okay. Well, that's probably better. Okay. Donna, do you have one?
I was gonna say shrimp, but that's just too lazy, so I
Just buy it from the grocery store.
No, I don't know that I have one particular one. I always make some kind of vegetable, something or other, a vegetable pizza or a tray or something like that. And then I'm like Diana, I don't drink sangria, but I bring my red wine with me or whatever. So
I have a sister that's clutch on the veggie tray for anything and everything. Like, it's just mark Rachel's name down on veggie tray every time. She's good.
I remember one time I brought, it wasn't really I guess it was kind of a potluck, but there were little kids there. And I brought, which I think is really good, is a combination of Brussels sprouts and acorn squash. And then you bake it and stuff. So anyway, this mother, she had 2 little kids there and they were crying. And I'm like, what's wrong? And she goes, I made him eat what you brought.
She told you that?
Why would you tell somebody that?
That's like the Sunday potlucks of my youth at church, and where like the grandmas would be like, "Oh, did you see that casserole? Did you see that lasagna? Oh, I wouldn't have one." That is so funny. What about you, Anthony? What is your go-to?
I mean, I might be sure I'll be done on the laziness. In my family, I'm really the cook. I love cooking, but I'm very much of like cooking for 2, cooking for 3, like my wife and I, like in terms of like doing batches of stuff. Like I'm terrible at measurements, and I don't like cooking things in large quantities at all. So if anything, I would say I usually like to say, what would you like me to bring? And I'll bring, some wine or something, or buy something. But banana pudding, I think is my go-to.
Oh, wow. Like homemade, or do you buy it?
Yeah, no, homemade. Yep.
Wow. That's a treat. Wow.
Yep.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Well, okay. Everybody that's watching, let us know what your go-to potluck dish is. Hopefully someday we'll get back to potlucks, and there's always one weird salad with like way too many marshmallows, or like I don't know about other weird colors, and you're like, I'll try everything, and you pretend. And then like when the really good stuff, it goes so fast.
Yeah.
But, oh my gosh, Melissa Cortez says, plates. I bring plates.
Hey, everybody needs.
It's a necessity. It's essential.
It is a necessity. That's really good. There's some people out there that are just too busy, and there should be no shame in just going to the grocery store and getting cookies or whatever. But that's a fun question to ask. All right, so let's get back to leadership, because you guys are all incredible in your fields. And I think that the next thing that I want to ask is, what have you seen or appreciated from like either your upline or downline leaders that you've tried to emulate? And it could be before the pandemic or now, but what is something that you've seen in another leader that you're like, that is something I need to implement in my leadership style? Do you want to start, Diana?
Sure.
Okay.
Several years ago, I worked for someone who taught me something that I've always used throughout my career, which is making sure if I'm giving a directive or asking someone to do a task of any sort, making sure they know why I'm asking for it. And I've appreciated that on the receiving end. If I don't get it, I actually ask, particularly in HR, because people will ask for kind of odd things, and you're like, well, what do you really need? Let me see if that's the right thing, and kind of talking it through. But ensuring that whomever I'm working with, if we're working on a project together and I need something, that they know why. Because 2 things: one, it gets them more engaged and helps them understand. But also, if I'm not asking for the right thing and they're knowledgeable about it, they might say, well, hey, did you think about adding this to the column, or whatever the case may be. So that is something I've emulated over the years, and has been super successful for me. And
so, I wonder if that comes from like the parents, like, do it because I said so.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I never got that as a kid, and I couldn't imagine a boss just telling me that. Well, because I said so. I have way too many questions, and I need to know why. So I would very much appreciate that as well. I'm sorry, did you have another point to make? Oh, okay.
That was it.
Anthony, what about you? What's something that you've seen in other leaders that you've tried to emulate or very much appreciate?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I really look for in my one-up leader, and then also being a leader myself, is really supporting personal growth and taking a personal interest in what people want to do. Like asking, like sometimes you ask, like, what do you want to do? There's a lot of people are in their role and like in their mind, like they have this dream that they might be scared to tell you. They don't tell anybody. And being supportive of that, letting you work outside the direct scope of your job description. If you're curious about something or you want to innovate or learn. And I've always had leaders that help support that for the most part, but I've learned a lot of people haven't. And there's, I've mentored people where it's like, talk to your boss about, you wanted to do a side project. Could you work with another department? And they're like, yeah, I did. They said they don't want me to do it. Then I'm trying to learn the finances. They don't want me to touch the finances. They just want me to deal with this stuff. So I appreciate leaders that really take a personal interest, because I want people to be happy wherever they are. And it might not be here. It might not be this organization in this industry. I just love my job so much. I want everybody to have that feeling. So maybe you want to start a business and do something, but I mean, whatever I can do to help people, and, obviously not pushing people out of the door, but really finding that interest and maybe connecting the dots of like, hey, you have this interest and we could do that here, or this kind of ties in that way. Or like I said, it might not be here, but in what way can I help somebody personally?
I absolutely love that so much. And my boss, who brought me into this company about 7 years ago, Rawless, I had never seen a leader like that. And he did that. He would say, we have the right person in the wrong spot. Let's find the right mean. And he's like, well, this employee is in a position that's really not a good fit for them, but we have other things that they could do, rather than churn through employees and just find this, you have somebody that's a part of your organization that wants to grow. Like, you pay attention, you listen, and we've had employees move positions and move laterally or sideways or up or down or whatever, because we value them as an employee, and maybe we've just made the wrong choice of the position they're in. So that it's extremely powerful. And I think it also helps create a much higher degree of employee engagement and probably retention.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, okay. And Donna, what about you? What other leadership ideas or theories or styles do you look to?
Sure. So first of all, I love what Anthony said, because his belief in professional development for his people, that's key. I mean, when a company invests in you and puts money towards you, again, that's, as you said, Leah, I think that adds a lot to an employee engagement and loyalty from an employee when you're going to invest in them. So a couple things that I was going to mention on this is, I don't know, a couple of years ago, I had a fire chief that was in one of my classes. And he said something, I'll never forget this. He goes, Donna, he says, I'm a really good chief, but I'm not a popular chief. And I said, why do you say that? And he goes, because the saying that says, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And he says, here's my saying, if it ain't broke, break it. Challenge the system. See if there is a better way of doing it. And he said, 9 times out of 10, the way we're doing it might be the right way. But how are you going to know if you don't try it differently? It could be more efficient. It could be, where it didn't cost as much. And he said, I'll tell you 2 things about, the guys that report to me. He says, number one, they're not going to get complacent. He said, not one day in their life do they come in and think they're going to do the same thing day in, day out, day in, day out. I'm going to change it on them. Second thing, and I think this is so key, is he said, as a leader, I think it's part of my job to push their growth. And how do you push growth if you can't push the comfort zone? And the comfort zone is pushed every time you have somebody do something different than the way they did it before. And I really love that, because, we all have that thing called the comfort zone where we stay in it, but nothing happens in there. All growth occurs when you push yourself to be outside the comfort zone. And I think the thing that ties into that a lot of times is because now what we're talking about is change, right? And most people hate change. It's uncomfortable. I don't know why we're doing it. And a lot of times what people say is like, oh, this is stupid. Why are we doing it? What they're really saying is, I'm afraid. I'm afraid I can't do it. I'm afraid I'm not going to be successful with it. But I think in order to be successful, when we put change in front of us, which is what we are facing now so much, is the first step is the awareness of not that a change is coming, but an awareness of why, like Diana said, why are we making this change? In other words, what we're currently doing is broken. And so you need to build a case to let your employees know why we're making this change. This is broken. And so this is what we're going to do, right? It's kind of like what Martin Luther King did on his I Have a Dream speech. You know, he didn't just say, we're going to do, I have a dream for this. He talked about, you know, inequality and why things weren't working the way they were in order to go where we want it, where, you know, would be a better place. So I think there's a lot to be said about what we have to be aware of now is whether you're going back to hybrid or going to be hybrid, not going back. If you're going to have hybrid or go back to the office, we need to build a case to say why we're doing it.
Right.
And every organization is going to be different. Every organization is going to be different.
No, yeah. And one thing I was reading when preparing for this was, and I had Joanne just put it in the comments from McKinsey and Company, and they said, like, you know, positive leadership during uncertain times are 3 top things are rediscover or emphasize your purpose. You don't have to narrow your focus. You don't have to just stop everything, but really go back to what your purpose as an organization is. Mm-hmm. And then, like Anthony said, you know, ask what actions you can take to protect or support those who rely on you or your organization, because people are vulnerable and they need help right now. Yeah. And then 3 was prioritize your emotional and organizational resilience. Like, you know, do that learning, do the changes that need to be made. But, you know, it was a succinct kind of directions. Like, you can do this. It is hard to be a leader in uncertain times, but I thought that they did a really good job of kind of encapsulating all of what you guys have shared. Mm-hmm. So thank you guys so much. And I know we have, you know, maybe about 10 minutes left. So I wanted to ask you all to kind of give your one piece of advice for all the leaders during the current uncertainty or unprecedented nature of our daily lives. Like, what's one thing that you will continue to do and that you think other leaders would benefit from going forward? Do you want to go first, Diana?
Sure. I was just thinking of a phrase that was said to me the other day that I thought was interesting about that HR is more about people than process. And I think it's just some of the things that I've been working on lately. Process is certainly important. It's how we are efficient. It's how we get things done. But not to have that right balance. To know that there's a process, but there's a person behind it, and to remain flexible. And one of the things about Donna mentioned comfort zone. I think, you know, as organizations are finding out in the last 6 to 12 months, getting out of their comfort zone of I need to see your face in the office every day, and being able to do the working in different places and working in different ways. So really carrying on, I would say, because I know we've done it by now, most organizations, but carrying on that openness, that being flexible, and creating an environment where your employee can be appreciated for what they bring to the table. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in a box. It might, a lot of healthcare. We have a big box around us, right? But where we can, that would, it would be advantageous for the employees and for employee engagement and just work-life balance. Yeah.
And Anthony, what about you?
Yeah, I would say, and it's something that I think I'll probably always be working on, but is, not being afraid to be not busy. So I say that, like, the past few months, I've been very intentional about not loading my calendar, because it's very easy. Like, you're squeezing time, and you're like, I could do 15 minutes here, or I got like 10 minutes where I could walk by here and get to here, and you're trying to load all this time in. And I think we kind of condition ourselves to that. I mean, that's kind of what executives do. You're busy, you're in meetings. I mean, that's kind of like a badge of honor. We kind of carry that, and it's just like, I'm important. I'm doing all these things, but I've been really taking time out to just leave places in my calendar empty. And I think it goes along with what I've said is rounding with people and get it. Like, I have to make intentional planned out time for informal time. So I have to formally schedule time to just shoot the breeze with people. So, hey, I'm just going to block out this hour and I'm just going to go walk around and talk to people. If I run into a patient and strike up a conversation, or if I go downstairs and somebody needs help pushing a cart somewhere, or just, just having time to be out there. And just building that in and not just loading your schedule up so like every single minute is filled up, like leave some space. And I think for a while I was kind of embarrassed. I was like, I hope nobody sees my calendar. I got a whole afternoon open. They're not going to think I'm doing anything. So I'm starting to embrace that a little more and understanding that you can use that time productively without being in a meeting, without working on a PowerPoint. I mean, just being around and talking to people and just building those relationships is productive on its own.
That's great.
That's so valuable. Thank you for sharing that. And Donna, what would you give as your advice for what other leaders should do and what you're going to continue?
Sure. So I think being mindful every single day of how you're showing up. There's a leadership law that's called the law of the lid. And the law says this: within the history of mankind, no organization has ever been able to rise above its leader. So break it down maybe to your team if you're leading a team. Who sets the lid on the team? The leader does. I can almost promise you, if I walk into your office and I meet the leader first, I can tell you what the team might be about. If you have a negative, low energy, complaining leader, you almost see that on the same team. But if you see somebody that shows up every day with a good attitude, with energy, even during times of fear and change and all of that, but they're always showing up. And, I say this with 100% confidence. When you get into a leadership position and you raise your right hand and you say, I do to this, you have given up all rights. I mean, you can, but you know what's going to happen. Your team's going to have it. Your company's going to have it because it's the most contagious thing in an organization. I wish I could say that studies say positive attitudes are contagious, but it's not. It's negative. So if you're in a leadership position, you want to be negative, I'll tell you what, that's going to be a tough call for the rest of the organization. So I think just be mindful of how you show up and know your influence is huge, huge.
That is extremely, extremely helpful. Thank you. I think all of your advice, every one of you has had great advice. And I know that we're all working through this together and everybody's learning together. But I'm so glad that I had 3 of you today who are all seemingly wonderful leaders and have so much knowledge about this area. So before I let you go, I want to know so Olympics just got over and I love the Olympics. I know that the viewership was really down this year, but that's fine. If you were going to compete in the Olympics, either summer or winter, what would be your Olympic sport?
Interesting.
And you don't have to be successful. It could just be, you don't have to win a medal. Just competing is great. What's something that you just love? What's something that you would compete in as an Olympian?
I'd like to figure out the curling thing. Like, what is that? What is that? I don't understand.
I have a cousin who's like a doctor of physics. He's a professor and he is in a whole curling thing and he started.
Yeah, they got leagues.
Yeah, he's in a traveling league. He's like in his mid 40s and he's like traveling the US in a curling league. And I was like, this is very strange, but I support it. Yep.
I had a guy in my class a couple of years ago, and this was in Wichita, Kansas, and he's from Lafayette. So go figure how he ended up in Wichita, Kansas. But he was in what's that called? What's that called?
Decathlon?
Decathlon, yeah.
Where they do all of the events?
Yeah. It was a public speaking class, and I will tell you, it was really distracting because this guy was so fit. I was like really distracted, just like, oh my gosh, he could look like that. But then, when he talked about his training and how he ate and all of that stuff. So I think
he's not good at just one event, but 10.
10. I know, really, right? I know. I probably would pick ice skating.
Oh, that's a classic. I agree.
I like their outfits too.
Just for the outfits. Okay. All right.
And I can't ice skate at all. So
Anthony, what about you?
Donna stealing my thunder again, man. I was gonna say ice hockey. I grew up playing ice hockey.
Oh, that makes sense.
Ever since I was 5 years old. So
you guys all chose Winter Olympic sports.
Oh,
those are all winter. Yeah.
I do like the swimming. Swimming is awesome.
But that's so hard. That's really hard. So you would do ice hockey.
Yep.
Okay. We watched some really strange sports that we had never seen. I didn't know rock climbing was an Olympic sport.
Speed walking. Speed
walking. That is insane. Those people are running. I could not.
They are.
There's no way. It's incredible. The one that I really liked was badminton. It was amazing. It's a slower tennis and it looks just so fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I just loved it. I would try that. Yeah. But thank you guys all so much for your time today. And if you have any last words or any, other things that you want to share for those that are watching, any podcasts, books, recommendations, and then also how our guests or our viewers can reach out to you if they have questions or just want to connect with you, where they should connect with you at.
Well, I know for all of us, for LinkedIn is certainly a good source. It's a great source of information. So, for me, that's a great way to connect as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what like final words of wisdom or encouragement? I guess encouragement is probably best for the leaders out there. What would you say to encourage them?
I would say take care of yourself so that you can take care of others. That's just been a big theme. I know it's said in so many different ways, but it's so true.
Mm-hmm.
So true.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Diana. Donna, what about you?
Yeah, I love that. What Diana just said, it made me really think about that too. I think also just be aware that you don't have to know everything. You hire people that are to help you. And by the way, to know everything. That's not what you're expected as a leader. Your expectations are, more on a personal note, getting to know them, and just be you. Be you. Recognize that you were put in that position for a reason. Don't become anybody different. I love the saying that says, "Be you. Everybody else is already taken." So yeah,
I like that too. That's true. I love that. And thank you. And should people connect with you via LinkedIn? Is that the best way?
LinkedIn is good. Email address, I can give that to you. The easiest one is just my first name, last name at Hotmail, Donna Forgy at Hotmail. That's the easiest one.
That's impressive. I have not met many people that still have a Hotmail address.
I know.
I do.
Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. Okay. That's not it. I won't forget it. I will always know your email, Donna. If I need to contact you, I will always know it. And Anthony, what about you? The best way to contact you, and then last words of encouragement for those leaders out there.
Sure. Yeah. Best way would be LinkedIn. Shoot me a message. I'm always on LinkedIn looking at messages. When to give out cell phone, email, I'm always looking to network and connect. So LinkedIn would be the best place. And I guess just final words of wisdom is just, always be working on being better. There's always opportunities to be better. It doesn't matter. That's why I always kind of discourage people from working to be the best, because the best kind of implies that there's like this finite, like it's only for a moment in time. Like once you win the Super Bowl, you just won the Super Bowl. Then you got to start over again. So it's just, you always have to get better. And I think that scares people sometimes, but you got to see it more as an opportunity than a mandate. There's always tomorrow. There's always things you can be doing to improve and work on. So just always be getting better.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much for that. Thank you, all three of you. You guys are just amazing. And I loved having you guys as guests today. And I hope you guys enjoyed your time. Thank you guys all who tuned in and watched. I see that there's some comments I didn't get to, but thank you so much for tuning in and listening to this wonderful discussion today about the best leadership skills to have during uncertainty. And Rala should be back next Thursday. I think I'm done. I'm officially done with fill-in host duties. So thank you guys so much. All right.
Thanks.
Jonathan, thank you guys. Jonathan, you can take us offline. And wait, we got to do our, like you said, Anthony, like our.
Yeah.
We're the news anchors.
That's funny.
It's always the most awkward